The first page is dedicated to the initial histograms from the CD45 versus time through viability, singlets, and forward versus side scatter to separate out the debris, to the side scatter versus CD45 screening histogram. In addition, all the data acquired for different cell populations is concentrated in a table format. As a matter of fact, this table is transferred directly into the final report where the data is editable, which means that the person who performs the professional component can choose which data should appear by checking different boxes next to the cell populations, while the values themselves are editable as well. The second page is the first of 3 pages dedicated to the analysis of B cells. The very first histogram separates the B cells from all the cells present in the specimen. In the case of bone marrows, here's where one can see both the mature B cells and the hematogones in the context of the entire specimen, while the second histogram analyzes whether the B cells are polyclonal or not. The first histogram in the third row isolates the B cells from the total population of lymphocytes, giving a cleaner look of the B cells, and the next kappa versus lambda histogram checks for their clonality. The last row further dissects the B cells based on their size, with the second histogram checking the clonality of the small B cells and the next one, the large B cells. Pages 3 and 4 continue the analysis of B cells. Page 3 further dissects the B cells based on their expression of different markers such as CD5, CD10, and CD200. To be noted that this FDA-approved panel does not contain CD23, since CD200 in combination with CD5 is a more specific marker for CLL than CD23. And page 4, and the last page dedicated to B cells, just shows different marker expressions to further characterize possible B cell clones. The very last row is dedicated to the hematogones in the case of bone marrows, and the separation of the hematogones from B lymphoblasts in cases of B lymphoblastic leukemias. Pages 5 and 6 are dedicated to the analysis of T cells and NK cells. The first histogram on page 5 isolates the T cells based on their CD3 expression. The T cells are then further analyzed for the CD4 and CD8 subsets and the presence or absence of the pan-T cell markers CD2, CD5, and CD7. In page 6, the NK and TNK cells are separated and further analyzed. Page 7 is dedicated to the isolation of the plasma cells based on their bright CD38 expression and their analysis for normal or abnormal expression of the surface markers CD19, CD20, CD117, CD13, and CD33. If the plasma cells exceed 0.5% of total cells or express abnormal surface markers, a reflex cytoplasmic plasma cell panel is run in order to check whether they are clonal or not. The plasma cell panel is also done in cases suspected clinically for a plasma cell neoplasm, regardless of plasma cell percentage or their surface markers. Page 8 is completely dedicated to the CD34 positive cells, where their expression of different pertinent markers is checked. In cases where the percentage of CD34 positive cells exceeds 5%, a reflex lineage panel is run to further analyze for the presence of different cytoplasmic markers. To make sure no abnormal cell populations are hidden in the CD45 dim or CD45 negative gate, pages 9 and 10 further analyze in detail these cells. In page 11, the monocytes are analyzed after they are first isolated from all other cells based on their CD14 and CD64 expression. The monocytes are further analyzed for their expression of different markers. The second histogram separates the monocytes into the classical, non-classical, and intermediate subsets based on their combination of CD14 and CD16 expression. All other histograms check if the monocytes are positive for different normal markers or if they express different lineage infidelity markers such as CD56, CD2, CD7, or CD117. In page 12, the granulocytes are analyzed in detail. The first pertinent information noted here is the mean site scatter versus lymphocyte ratio, useful in detecting a possible abnormal decrease in the granulocytic site scatter when the ratio is below 6. The next two histograms verify if the granulocytes show a normal or abnormal maturation pattern based on the co-expression of CD13 and CD16, and CD11b and CD16 respectively. The expression of CD10 by the mature component of the granulocytic lineage is checked in the first histogram of the second row, while the following histograms are meant to see if the granulocytes abnormally express lineage infidelity markers. And finally, page 13 is dedicated to different smaller populations of cells such as eosinophils, basophils, mast cells, and plasmacytoid dendritic cells.